gentlemen, this is Bob. Welcome to the weekly global strategic events roundup. Lots of events that can be seismic in nature. One of those ones, lots of governments changing. Brazil goes left, but just marginally. Lula wins. What does it tell everybody? It says in Rani Bagchi, what Lula's thin win in Brazil tells the world. To take on the right, the left should always move towards the center. Brazil joined the pink tide in Latin America as Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva staged a political comeback that will be the stuff of breathless storytelling. But here, like Trump, right, things are pretty similar. Bolsonaro was a Trump replica, as is Imran Khan, and less said about other countries, the better. And the other big thing that's happening is, obviously Sunak won, Truss is out. And here, what's happening in our backyard in Pakistan is scary, right? Significance of Sharif's Beijing visit and chaos within outside Pakistan. He's trying to do a delicate balancing act between the US and China, and he's trying to show, and during this kind of events where Pakistan's on fire, especially after Iran Khan got shot in the foot. But it does. I must tell you one point, right? If they wanted to get Imran, they would have gotten him, just like they got Benazir, right? We used to have a prop here in Delhi who was known to shoot himself in the calf, especially when some properties had to be, when people were doing a qabza on the property to get them eliminated. He would shoot himself in the calf, you would pay him off, and he would then go and file a criminal case in UP. This is what it is. Is this what it is, right? What do you have? Protests rock Pakistan. Imran says will continue march after recovery. Pak media can't repeat Benazir tragedy. Turning point in November, says Sanjay Baru. Attack on Imran, his long march, retirement of army chief could transform dynamic in Pakistan and region. Important to remember. Will Khan end up laying siege to Islamabad? Will Bajwa retire and walk into the sunset? Or will there be a military reassertion of some sort in Pakistan politics? Can political leaders like Khan and Sharif arrive at some compromise that allows the country a breather? Will the army dump Sharif and go back to backing Khan? Are Pakistani political parties and the armed forces the only actors in the game, or do outside players, China, United States, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, have any skin in the game? You tell me, folks, right now, I don't think so. Making the general sweat. This is by Ajay Vyasara. Imran, politically stronger after the assassination attempt, has created more space for civilians in Pakistan. Pakistan civilian leaders may exhibit the vice of being corrupt, inefficient or populist, but they have the virtue of being democratic and halfway accountable. The fix for flawed democracy in Pakistan has often been more military. Perhaps it's time to experiment with more democracy. A befuddled military establishment not used to larger than life civilian leaders, let him loose to practice his divisive street politics. Aka Trump, right? Then you have Sharad Sabharwal, right? He says return to crisis. He says Pakistan will continue to come back to the brink periodically until it resolves its basic dysfunction and its hatred for India, right? The periodic turmoil in Pakistan is a reminder of the complex challenge that India faces. The Pakistani state has been troublesome for us, but a meltdown in Pakistan would be no less so. We have little leverage over Pakistani's internal developments, but there is need to adopt a more nuanced policy, keeping in mind the sizable constituency in Pakistan that questions the entrenched interests responsible for Pakistani's dysfunction, notably the stranglehold of the army that continues to place its institutional interests above those of the Pakistani people. And then finally, by Tilak Deveshwar, who knows Pakistan like the back of his hand, taking stock of Pakistan's volatile political situation. 3 events have ratcheted up tensions and unpredictability. Imran Khan's disqualification as a member of parliament, his long march meant to create further pressure to call for early elections, and ISI chief Anjum's unprecedented press meet at a time of great instability in the country, especially after gunfire at Khan's rally. Any further rise in conflict will be disastrous for everyone, especially China. A charm offensive of Putin and the Russians on Modi continues. It's only Modi by name, right? They know it. Like a charm offensive of him, he's waddling around in his 36-inch chest, destroying India's foreign policy as we know it. Though situation being as it is and as fluid, it's working for us. Trade, Ukraine, war to be focus of Jaishankar's visit to Russia, MEA. But here's the thing, right? 300,000 recruits were mobilized, but look at what they say. Morning brief. Russia struggles to mobilize forces. Russian President Vladimir Putin has been packing Russia's front line with demoralized men with little to no military training and scant gear as he scrambles to sustain his military campaign and mounting battlefield casualties. But mobilizing 300,000 new forces has proven to be difficult, especially after hundreds of thousands of people have already fled the country to escape conscription. Those who remained have been snatched from offices, cafes, and even homeless shelters, and authorities struggle to fill the ranks. That's the reality. And that's resulted in this dangerous game. Russia's dangerous game. Moscow's nuclear saber rattling confronts the West with tough choices, writes Jean Kinimont. Says there's no clear end in sight to the war in Ukraine. Although Ukraine has made recent military gains, Putin has doubled down by annexing parts of Ukraine and portraying Russia's invasion as part of civilizational war with the West. The Russian leadership has also hinted that nuclear weapons could come into play, as well as the rhetoric. There are real concerns that the changing nature of nuclear weapons may destabilize the traditional deterrence equation, creating many more possible scenarios and nuclear strategies and game theorists imagined during the Cold War. And because of that, this is what Ashley tells us, right? India may be compelled to test again, and when it does, it's in the US's interest to avoid penalizing it. He writes, why India could feel the need to retest its thermonuclear weapons, the Indo-US nuclear deal, and Russia's nuclear blackmail. He writes, first, the importance of treating Southern Asia as a unit of analysis because China has become an integral nuclear player in the Indian subcontinent. Second, the impact that external developments have been on the patterns of nuclearization in the region, especially the rise of US-China competition and the disappearance of Sino-US rivalry, both of which have shaped China's evolving nuclear program. Third, the striking transformation in the nuclear weapons programs themselves in China, India and Pakistan since 1998. He says, if the Russians can successfully get away with some coercion, could the Chinese follow in their footsteps in the future? That is an unsettling thought, and it impacts India directly. India can resist both Pakistani and Chinese aggression adequately with its conventional capabilities. India really does not require nuclear weapons except to prevent attacks and fend off nuclear blackmail. Then, Rajamohan writes, the new diplomacy. Is it? Putting national interests above political correctness has given much strategic dividend for India, except I think now the domestic policy is taken away from that, right? Under previous governments, Delhi was often tempted to limit its relationship with the US and Europe for fear of offending the sensitivities of Moscow and Beijing. This was done either in the name of ideology or the fear that there will be unpleasant consequences in relation with Russia and China. The Modi government has broken out of the defensive and differential mindset, putting national interests above political correctness has given much strategic dividend for Delhi in the last few years. I, on the other hand, beg to differ a bit, right? Four major challenges that await India at G20. That's the leadership we are taking. Consequential, right? India takes over as president of the group in December. It must get the ball rolling to reform the G20, set new limits on economic warfare, reshape the global green agenda, and prevent debt-related crises. Aka China. And as Mohan Kumar writes, he says, all major powers face two-front challenges. Like the US, Russia, and China, India is also facing two-pronged challenges, but there is enough wiggle room to be effective. India's foreign policy must be pragmatic. Till now, Delhi has done well in coping with the geostrategic challenges of COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine, but I think we may have overplayed the hand with now Jaishankar scurrying away to Russia, and with Putin giving us the schmooze, which is ruining our foreign policy just because of domestic reason to stay stronger than life, and a number of other things that are happening. Cheers. So here's the thing, right? Germany's foreign minister Baerbock may visit in December. India had last month rebutted her remarks on need for UN role in Kashmir. But here's the thing about Germany, right? Now the Chancellor is headed towards Beijing, and he has actually headed and shaken hands with him and all that. And he's had to also scurry a guy running to Washington to convince them that he's not selling out. But let me point this out. In my view, it's Germany's inconsistency and sitting on the fence that has resulted in what is happening in Europe and the way, because it turned a blind eye on what was happening in Russia and human rights in China. That is the reason why Xi and Putin are able to still pull strings as far as Russia is concerned. So like the Second World War, folks, Germany was responsible. Is it going to be responsible for the Third World War too, sitting on the fence? Who knows? And what's happening here is Ruchi Sharma writes, China forever number 2. Read his words. Implications of its growth slowing to 2.5% haven't been fully digested anywhere, including Beijing. Dollar versus yuan. As early as 2014, some economists were claiming that China already was the world's largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity, a construct based on theoretical currency values and no meaning in the real world. These theoreticians argued that the yuan was grossly undervalued and bound to appreciate against the dollar, revealing the dominance of China's economy. Instead, the Chinese currency depreciated and its economy is still a third smaller than the US in nominal terms. If anything, then 2.5% is an optimistic forecast that downplays the risks to growth, including growing tensions between China and its major trade partners, growing government interference in the most productive private sector technology, and mounting concerns about the debt load. China at 2.5% has major implications for its ambitions as an economic, diplomatic, and military superpower. A lesser China is more likely than the world realizes, right? The future, as foretold by Xi. Chinese citizens have to brace themselves for tough times, Indians for a more aggressive PLA. The 20th Congress Communist Party of China did not see a triumphant leader painting the picture of a bright future. Rather, Xi's remarks were a reflection of the difficulties that China faces in reforming what is clearly unsustainable growth model and its worsening external environment. China brief. Xi selects his new standing committee. In Xi's personal list, there are no signs of seeking to balance factions or throw bones to business or economic reformers, right? So tough times, right? Making sense of Xi's party Congress speech. Everything we've been doing is great and we are going to keep doing it. That means the increasingly unpopular zero COVID policy has no foreseeable end. Furthermore, Xi's message reflects no economic vision. Instead, he frequently mentioned common prosperity. In Xi's view, he and the party always come first. Alright, remember, Xi centralized power at the 20th Party Congress. He says a highly choreographed event. The Party Congress is meant to be seamless, but that was disrupted on Sunday when officials escorted Hu Jintao, Xi's predecessor, out of the room. Video footage of his removal sparked confusion online, although it was quickly censored and state media insisted he was not feeling well and had been let out for a rest. Alright, he says, but the third and most disturbing possibility is that it was planned and we just witnessed Xi deliberately and publicly humiliate his predecessor. Palmer added this would be an extraordinary move, but one that rammed home the message of Xi's absolute power, something reinforced by the rest of the party Congress. And what do we have here? The new emperor. Xi Jinping now rules supreme, but he also has to contend with slowing economy and aging society. Then, decoding Xi's big speech, the key takeaway for India and the world. Reforms on back burner. No policy changes were announced, suggesting the party's endorsement of Xi's policies, including the zero COVID policy. She also downplayed the impact of the economic downturn and the popular resentment it has generated by making half the differences to economic reforms than in 2017. Worrying rhetoric. Xi's observation on Taiwan, China's neighbors and military hold special significance, striking an uncompromising stance on Taiwan. He has said complete reunification of our country must be realized and it can without doubt be realized. Okay. Then what do we have here? All eyes on Taiwan, ministers India visit, really important. China's resolution opposes independence to Taiwan. India hits out at Pakistan and China over CPEC. China names bridges, villages after 4 killed in Galwan clashes. Eye on China, Australia keen to boost India military ties. As India tests missiles, China puts spy ship on prowl in IOR. In Beijing, Xi schools shows easy to destroy trust, hard to rebuild it. This is what I was talking about. The slippery Germany, or actually the spineless Germany. Yuan Bank 6 in Indian Ocean to monitor China satellite launches. Fair market access important for trade with SCO EAM at the China-led SCO meet. Now this is the important part, folks. China has unbared its claws in no uncertain term. For us, there is no future. We've got to understand that. Where we are, priorities and national interests lie. And it definitely does not mean balancing, right? We really do not need to balance or pretend about sensitivities of this fat ogre Xi or the warriors that he has, these political warriors or whatever they're called, that are assaulting sensibilities all across the world, folks. 3 cheers and Jai Hind.